So this is going to be the ultimate driving with David to set up 49ers free agency and all these player acquisitions in the offseason. I say ultimate driving with David because of the view. We're going to loop around Fort Point, then go through the Presidio and talk about the 49ers order of business this offseason. First things first, they only have one exclusive rights free agent, and that is Austin Pleasants, the offensive tackle who was replacing Trent Williams for the 49ers during that hamstring injury late in the season. Now, exclusive rights free agent means that if the 49ers offer him a preset contract and it's only about $1 million salary for the 2026 season, then Austin Pleasants will have to play for San Francisco. So that seems like a no-brainer. Expect the 49ers to tender Austin Pleasants as an exclusive rights free agent, ERFA, and expect him to sign with San Francisco for at least this 2026 offseason. How about this view of Fort Point? This is sweet. I love when you come up on the southern tip of the Golden Gate Bridge. That is actually an old fort. You'll see that there's a guard in front of it. Now it is property of the U.S. government, and now it's a museum, so you can go and check it out. But the Presidio, where we're at, it used to be a Spanish fort. That's what its original use here at the tip of the Golden Gate Bridge. The fort itself, you see the flag on top of it, was built before the bridge, which is the most photographed bridge in the world. Then we got to move on to the 49ers restricted free agents. Now, this is a little bit different for the restricted free agents. These guys will probably stay with the 49ers if the 49ers want them to stay. Check out the city. That's awesome. That one, I mean, whenever you're by the Golden Gate Bridge at this time, the city is still illuminated, yet we're under the cliff, so we've got good lighting actually to shoot a video. What a beautiful day. But the restricted free agents for the 49ers, Chase Lucas is one of them. Sam Okawanu is another one. Jake Tonjes, the hero back in week one who did a really good job filling in for George Kittle this year, is a restricted free agent. The 49ers, by rule, can tender the restricted free agents a preset contract. The RFAs, as we call them, restricted free agents, then can either sign the tender or they can see if another team is going to be willing to offer them more money. If that other team offers them more money, well, then the 49ers will have the right of first refusal, which means that they can match the contract that the other team offers, or they can say, bye, we're not willing to pay you that much. So the 49ers will have ultimate say whether or not they keep these restricted free agents, but there is a chance that some of these guys might be elsewhere. In terms of an exclusive rights free agent like Pleasants, the 49ers, it would be up to them to say, no, we don't want Austin Pleasants on this football team anymore this year. So those will be the first orders of business in this entire free agency cycle. When we look forward here a little bit, I want to show you guys some of these buildings as we raise up out of Fort Point toward the higher parts of the Presidio. The warming hut is back here. These are former military buildings that are now like coffee shops and stuff. And as I power up the hill and you can see downtown San Francisco and the Palace of Fine Arts in the distance, you're going to get to see Crissy Field, which used to be an old military landing strip turned into just a beautiful spot near the water. It's a big grass patch that we're going to see in just a second as we start talking about the unrestricted free agents. Now, that is the Super Bowl of the offseason, right? Unless you prefer the NFL draft, but it's a different method of talent acquisition. Unrestricted free agency is going to cost a whole lot more, but you're going to get more proven products on the market. And the 49ers have a big batch of players who are scheduled for unrestricted free agency. Spencer Burford started at left guard for the 49ers this year, and I think played his best football for San Francisco. I really think he's going to command a massive amount of money, though, much bigger than what the 49ers will be willing to pay or what they should pay on the open market. It reminds me a little bit of the Aaron Banks situation. He never delivered plus football for the 49ers, but he was adequate, and then he made, what, $19 million from the Green Bay Packers annually? 49ers were not willing to match that. I don't think they're going to be willing to match whatever Burford commands, probably north of $10 million on the open market. Jason Pinnock is a free agent. Doubt that he'll come back. He was a Robert Saleh guy and ended up losing his starting spot, played the big nickel for San Francisco. They've got to upgrade at the safety position, and Jason Pinnock will potentially be somebody going to another team, the veteran safety. Kevin Givens, he's been on a series of one-year contracts for the 49ers at that defensive tackle position. You wonder if he's starting to age out and his snap count went down this year. They started turning to younger defensive tackles in Alfred Collins and CJ West. So Givens probably not back for the 49ers, although that wouldn't shock me either way. Luke Gifford was a very good special teams player for San Francisco, and that part of the game surged for the 49ers under Brant Boyer, the new 49ers special teams coordinator. So Gifford, even though the 49ers, I think, would love to upgrade the linebacker position to where he's not starting at that Sam spot, I think that you like Luke Gifford as a special teams contributor on this football squad. Then there is Kendrick Bourne, probably only a year-long nostalgia rental for the 49ers, and it was good to have KB back in the building. I think that you have to appreciate what KB was able to do for San Francisco, especially in that game against the Rams. There was only a short list of receivers this year that put up games as big as he did against the Rams, and then he had another good performance for the 49ers when they really needed it, when they needed to fill that roster out. So you've got to give Kendrick Bourne a lot of credit for delivering and picking up slack when needed, but the 49ers would certainly like to upgrade that receiving room and especially the speed within the room. Sky Moore is going to be an interesting one. He was a really good return man for the 49ers this year. They used him on some gadget plays. You wonder what his market's going to be like. And I think if it's soft enough, the 49ers would love to have him back for another year. But the way that he returned punts this year didn't screw things up. I know he caught a couple of those fair catches inside the 10. You don't want too much of that, but he held on to the football, and I think that ends up being one of the most important things. I do believe that Sky Moore would be somebody who the 49ers are interested in bringing back in 2026. We're now reaching the middle of the Presidio. Right up here is a new pizza spot they call Il Parco. And then I'm going to make a left turn here so we can see one more look at the Tunnel Tops Park, which is one of the... that guy just decided to run through the stop sign. That's great, but...
Thanks, Brad.
Was his name Brad? He looked like a Brad? All right. Well, here's Tunnel Tops, and this is brand new. That used to have the freeway bisecting the Presidio, and now it doesn't, and you can see the Golden Gate Bridge, and you can hang out in that area. We should even do a video from that area at some point. I know that I'm making a little loop around the main strip here of the Presidio, but it's worth it. It is nice and picturesque. It is like a rural area inside of a big city. John Weeks. Now we're moving through the specialists now. John Weeks, long snapper. 49ers want him back. A 40-year-old guy, but he knows how to long snap, and there are not many that can do it at a high enough level to want to retain in the world, but Brant Boyer wanted John Weeks. Last year, he played nearly 2 decades for the Texans, and then he switched over to the 49ers, and now the 49ers are going to try to bring Weeks back, and obviously they're going to try to bring Eddie Pinheiro back as well. Now, Pinheiro, that might be one that costs a little bit more money. Eddie, he only missed 1 field goal this year, and it was from 64 yards, and it hit off the crossbar in Indianapolis. I mean, he was close to perfect, and I would even say that he was perfect on field goals. He did see some struggles on extra points. That was by the book for Eddie Pinheiro. His extra point percentage is actually suspiciously low over his entire career versus his field goal percentage. But, boy, you got to give him so much credit for stepping in, and I can't say that he single-handedly turned around the 49ers special teams unit, but his contributions began right away in week 2 against New Orleans, and it was hell in week 1 with Jake Moody missing those kicks in Seattle. The 49ers were the number 2 special teams unit behind only the Seahawks the rest of the way, and I think that Eddie was the biggest driver in all of that. How much money is he going to command? Would the 49ers be willing to use the franchise tag on him? They have done that before with a kicker with Robbie Gould. They ultimately agreed to terms with Robbie Gould, so he didn't play on the franchise tag. Got nice houses in the Presidio. You got to love this. They call this the Infantry Terrace residential area. So, well, all of this is named after the military, like different infantry terrace, officers' quarters. But now they're normal private homes, right in the city. I guess technically U.S. government land, or maybe it belongs to the Presidio Trust. I don't know how the politics of all it work, but you are within the 7x7 of San Francisco, yet you've got a little bit more of a rural countryside feel. Very, very green in the Presidio. Brian Robinson, Joe, by the way, Eddie Pinheiro, how much money? I don't know, $5 million a year? Would it cost $6 million a year? Would the 49ers be willing to pay that? Well, after special teams had essentially cost you massively year over year. I mean, it cost the 49ers a Super Bowl in 2023. When you get a kicker who's as good as Eddie Pinheiro, I think that you have to think long and hard about keeping him. I mean, if you're going to keep Mac Jones, and it sounds like the 49ers want to do that, I mean, he's a slightly more expensive than average backup quarterback, but it's a luxury item, and I think that it's a luxury item that becomes a necessity for a really good football team, because QB2 is something that can save a season. Well, then you've got to think long and hard about making sure that you pay the kicking position so you just don't have a revolving door of guys there. I would go as far to say as Eddie Pinheiro can be considered a foundational pillar of this football team. You've got one at quarterback, you've got one at running back, obviously Purdy, McCaffrey. You need to find one at wide receiver since Brandon Ayuk abandoned the team, but you've got George Kittle at tight end, Trent Williams at offensive line, Nick Bosa defensive line, Fred Warner at linebacker, Diamado Lenore in the secondary. Don't you need a special teams foundational pillar? I mean, we've seen the Seattle Seahawks plow all the way to the Super Bowl with special teams leading the way. So I think that, wow, that sun is bright. Man, I got to put down the flap here. Future is very bright if the 49ers can keep that special teams unit intact. And I think that Eddie Pinheiro, arguably the most important piece of all that. Clelin Ferrell, probably somebody who the 49ers think about signing late in the offseason, maybe even midstream next year if he's not with another team, but obviously they want to up the firepower on that defensive line. You know, if you think that he's worth the 90-man roster spot over the offseason, sure. That wasn't the case over the course of the past offseason, though, with Clelin Ferrell, and San Francisco was able to add him to the practice squad a little bit later on. And he, in many ways, was a season saver, and they needed his talent once they were starting to run dry there, but I just don't know if he's going to be on the 90-man roster. Curtis Robinson has been a good special teams player for the 49ers, solid depth for San Francisco at linebacker. It's not somebody you want to start at linebacker. I think that you like him on those teams' units, maybe worth a 90-man roster spot. I think that it was a player who was hurt by the ACL tear in 2024 and will be trying to recover from that and get a step past that here in 2026, because I do think that it's something that left him a little bit slower coming off the injury in 2025. Trent Taylor, he is still on the 49ers pending free agents list. I'm sure you saw him in some of those videos from Mexico with all the other guys on the team who love to go down to Cabo. I believe that was in Cabo, but Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk, and Trent Taylor, the receiver selected back in the 5th round of the 2017 draft, and then suffered some injuries, back issues with the 49ers. Went off to what? The Bengals, and I think he was with the Bears for a little bit. Came back to the 49ers in 2024, but was on injured reserve for essentially all of 2025. Trent is a pending free agent. This probably, I would think, is going to be the end of the road for him career-wise. But he had a fun time in the 49ers locker room. He still had a chance to hang out with the guys, and that was another nostalgia edition for the 49ers here over the course of the past 2 years. Patrick Taylor Jr., running back, missed all of this 2025 season with an injury suffered in training camp. I've seen him in the locker room a few times here over the course of the past couple days. He might be back as off-season depth for the 49ers, but it's not going to be anybody that they can count on in that running back room. I'm more interested to see what they do with Isaac Guerendo moving forward. Might that be somebody who they slowly transition to wide receiver? Can Guerendo solve some of the ball security issues that I think contributed to keeping him off the field? We saw the debut of Jordan James, the rookie this year, against Seattle. He was higher up on the pecking order than Isaac Guerendo. So you do wonder how the 49ers are going to formulate that room behind Christian McCaffrey, because it is important to take into account that Christian McCaffrey is proceeding to the wrong side of 30 at this part of his career. And depth at that position is so vital. We saw in the NFC Championship game, the Seattle Seahawks, they had lost Zach Charbonnet to an ACL tear when they played the 49ers in the divisional round. Kenneth Walker III is awesome, but then they had more depth beyond that helped them get through that NFC title game against the Rams. So the 49ers need to make sure that they have trusted depth. I know that Brian Robinson Jr. is also an unrestricted free agent. It'll be interesting to see what his market is, and he'll definitely want to test it, because he's had some really, really nice runs and stretches of runs with the 49ers. But with Christian McCaffrey eating up so many of those carries for San Francisco, nothing really sustained. And the older that McCaffrey gets, especially coming off of a high-volume 2025 season, the more important it's going to be for the 49ers to have that secondary backfield punch. And we've seen it around other teams, and the 49ers, they have a special one in Christian McCaffrey, but they're not going to be immune to it forever. They're going to need that two-headed monster at running back to split some more of the carries. And maybe with McCaffrey coming off such a high-volume year in 2025, maybe 2026 is going to be that season for the 49ers. We're going to exit the Presidio here in just a couple minutes and move on into the marina, but I'm going to end the show as soon as we move on into the marina, because we've seen the marina before. We've driven through it before on Driving with David. We haven't quite done the Presidio this many times before, and that pizza place is actually really, really good. We just made a nice loop, though. You guys were able to see the very western side of it, where that World War II West Coast Memorial is, and now you're seeing the eastern side of the Presidio heading back toward the city, Palace of Fine Arts in the distance. A lot of palm trees, which I do not believe are native to this area, but it's okay. They seem to look okay in the background of our video. We're going to go by where a lot of Star Wars was made, the Lucasfilm headquarters. And there is a nice Master Yoda statue there, which I believe I've featured at some point. You can't really feature it from the car because it's a little bit further away, but this is all Lucasfilm. Founded by George Lucas, who's from San Anselmo. So if you go up across the Golden Gate Bridge to Marin County, you can go to San Anselmo, and they've got another Yoda statue combined with a Harrison Ford statue, because that was also Lucasfilm. And it says that Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford obviously, Indiana Jones and Master Yoda both invented in San Anselmo, California. And a lot of it, I'm sure, was worked on here in the Presidio with Lucasfilm. The Master Yoda statue is back in there. Margot doing a great job. This is Lombardi herself again on the camera. She's won some awards for her cinematography this year. We're going to be headed down to Hollywood. I think they still have those in the Kodak Theater. We're going to have to get Margot some real recognition. Matt Hennessy, the center, he started a few games while Jake Brendel was hurt for the 49ers this year. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Remember, he can play guard. So I think the 49ers would be very smart to try to bring Matt Hennessy back. He played some good football for them this year. Garrett Wallow, the linebacker, I think he impressed them down the stretch. Wouldn't be shocked to see Wallow, who was picked up off of waivers from the Denver Broncos back on this football team next year. Yetur Gross-Matos is a really, really interesting one because Yetur had been hurt a lot for the 49ers over the course of his 2 seasons. But when he was healthy, boy, I mean, this was a player with real freakish athletic upside. And I don't know if the injuries have hurt his market enough for the 49ers to be realistic players in re-signing him, but if they can get him at a discount, I'm sure that the 49ers will love to have Yetur Gross-Matos back. Here are the gates to the Presidio, and I feature the Boys Deli a lot. Golden Gate Market and Deli right here. You can see it right past that pizza by the slice shop. They've got the same menu as the Boys Deli on Polk, and I've got to shout out to them. Very, very quality sandwiches as well. And you're going to see that 49ers logo and a Giants logo on the wall, and the Super Bowl logo. Everything on the wall of Golden Gate Market and Deli. Jordan Elliott, Nick Zakelj, Kaiser White, all free agents. And then we could finish with the big fish at the final, which has been newly renovated. An iconic San Francisco sports bar. And you can see the sign says that it's the original last call. Well, the original last call, or the last call for us on this show, is Jauan Jennings. That is the big fish unrestricted free agent. He might get over $20 million. I think he wants $20 million. I don't think the 49ers have it in their budget or in their wherewithal to pay that to Jauan Jennings. And if that ends up being the case, if the Titans, somebody that wants to establish a culture of toughness, and how Jauan Jennings can get under people's skin, if one of those teams wants to bring him in for that kind of big money, I don't think the 49ers will be able to match, and then Jennings will have to decide, do I follow the money or do I take a discount to stay with my original team? And I think that's why Jauan was so emotional at locker clean-out day for the 49ers, because it is a business, and he's made a lot of memories with the 49ers, but the business aspect of all this might lead to him not coming back to the team that's hosted him for over a half decade. We could say that getting Jauan back is an uphill proposition for the 49ers as we climb the hills here of Pack Heights. I said I wasn't going to go to the marina, but I think we can go up to Pack Heights, get to the very top, look back at the bay, and wrap this up. Who wants to see Jauan Jennings back? If you do, well, it just became even more of an uphill climb. At this point, I feel like the cars are going to flip backwards. Thankfully, we don't weigh that much, but we made it up to the top at Vallejo Street. Take a look at some of these houses. This is awesome. We're going to look back right here on the bay. That is our 49ers unrestricted free agent show. Beautiful. The sun is setting on some 49ers eras, but it will be rising on others. Thanks for joining Driving with David. We'll talk to you soon.